Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Papineau has the distinction of being the first leader of Canada to have violated the Ethics Act. In response to the Ethics Commissioner's report, he didn't take full responsibility for what he did. He even implied that she was mistaken. Will the Prime Minister tell us whether he unequivocally accepts the Commissioner's report on his illegal activities? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, immediately after the report came out, I took responsibility, as all leaders must do, and I accepted all the Commissioner's findings. I took steps to make sure that in the future all family vacations will be approved in advance by the Ethics Commissioner, and I will continue to follow all advice and recommendations coming from the Commissioner on how to manage my family friendship with the Aga Khan. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Wait for the Ethics Commissioner's report because the Conflict of Interest Act states that the Prime Minister is responsible for, quote, arranging his or her private affairs in a manner that will prevent him from being in a conflict of interest. So does the Prime Minister agree with the Ethics Commissioner that he failed to meet these standards as required by law?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, immediately after the report was released, I took responsibility. I accepted the full recommendations of the Commissioner and will be moving forward in such a way that any personal vacations or family travel gets approved in advance by the Commissioner of Ethics and Conflict of Interest.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was informed repeatedly that business between himself and the Aga Khan, someone he defines as a close family friend, the Prime Minister should have been aware of his responsibilities under the Ethics Act, including mixing up business and pleasure. What is the Prime Minister going to do to ensure that he doesn't put himself in a conflict of interest again? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Commissioner found, I didn't take part in any decision affecting the Aga Khan or the Foundation. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
His lawyers argued that when he took office, the Prime Minister had no foreseeable business with the Aga Khan. This is despite the Aga Khan's frequent dealings with the previous government and ongoing projects, all of which the Prime Minister was briefed on. Does the Prime Minister really expect us to believe that it was impossible to anticipate any conflict of interest?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when the Commissioner put out her report, we accepted it immediately, and I took responsibility for my actions. At the same time, moving forward, as is important as Canadians expect, we will ensure that we work with the conflict of interest on any personal family vacations or any personal travel the Prime Minister undertakes in the future.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, the Aga Khan's representatives asked to meet with the Prime Minister to discuss ongoing business with his government. Now, that meeting request, which was accepted, was made just 2 days before the Prime Minister took one of his vacations to the Aga Khan's private island. Accepting a meeting with lobbyists representing the man whose generous hospitality he was about to enjoy. How could the Prime Minister not realize that that was a conflict of interest?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as I've said, I accept the full recommendations and the conclusions of the Commissioner. I think it's important that the Commissioner and that we recognize a more stringent set of rules for what constitutes a friendship. These are the kinds of things that we fully accept and fully understand. We'll move forward in a way that Canadians can be sure that any family travel or personal travel by the Prime Minister, by myself, will be verified and worked through with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner.
In her report, the Commissioner said that found that the Prime Minister had official dealings with the Aga Khan. Does the Prime Minister recognize and acknowledge the Commissioner's findings? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Immediately after the report was released, the Prime Minister took responsibility, as a leader should, and accepted the findings of the Commissioner. The Prime Minister has taken steps to ensure that all future family vacations are cleared ahead of time with the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Prime Minister will continue to follow any advice and recommendations that the Commissioner has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chef de l'Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister asked for more than one personal luxury vacation from someone his government was doing business with. He should have known this was wrong, but he did it anyway. The Prime Minister accepted a private helicopter ride. He should have known that was wrong too, but he did it anyway. The result is that he is now the first Prime Minister to break Canada's federal ethics laws. Why does the Prime Minister think that that's okay?
Yes.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Time and time again, this government respects officers of Parliament and the work that they do. Immediately after the report was released, the Prime Minister took responsibility, as a leader should, and accepted the findings of the Commissioner. The Prime Minister has taken steps to ensure that all future family vacations are cleared ahead of time with the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Prime Minister will continue to follow any advice and recommendations that the Commissioner has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when he went to Bell Island for his vacation, the Prime Minister chose to board a private helicopter, even though he knew that was explicitly prohibited by the Conflict of Interest Act. Why did he think he could take that helicopter ride? The Honourable Government House Leader
has answered these questions on numerous occasions. Once again, as was clearly said, immediately after the report was released, the Prime Minister took responsibility, as a leader should, and accepted the findings of the Commissioner. The Prime Minister has taken steps to ensure that all future family vacations are cleared ahead of time with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Prime Minister will continue to follow any advice and recommendations that are given. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in an appearance before the Commissioner, the Prime Minister revealed that he did not consider those meetings to be business meetings. Does the Prime Minister still maintain that? That an organized meeting with the AGACON has nothing to do with the Government of Canada's business? The Government House Leader.
One thing that is clear in regards to this government, which the previous government did not do, is that we are committed to engaging and having conversations with Canadians, whether those are tough conversations, whether that is feedback as to how we can actually respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. In regards to the report, immediately after it was released, the Prime Minister took responsibility, as a leader should, and accepted the findings of the Commissioner. We have been in our constituencies for several weeks. The Prime Minister has been available at town halls. Numerous questions have been posed directly of him, and he has been available to answer them. Thank you.
Order. Members seem to have forgotten that one side speaks and the other side speaks, and the rest of us listen. Yes, it's been a long break. Apparently, members have forgotten some things, perhaps, but I know they can bring it back to mind. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, according to the Ethics Commissioner's report, the Prime Minister thinks that his meetings with international leaders, including the AGACON, are purely ceremonial in nature. So if the Prime Minister thinks that his roles in these meetings is just ceremonial, then who's doing the actual work that his job requires?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
And this government does. And if we want to actually look at the work that this government's doing, let's look at the economy. 750,000 jobs created by Canadians for Canadians. Highest growth in any G7 country. There is more confidence in this government and in Canadians today than there was 3 years ago when the previous government was there. This government will continue to work on behalf of Canadians to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to serve alongside this Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was this Prime Minister who tried to hide from Canadians the details about his unethical vacations. He didn't want anyone to know where he was or who he was with. And he didn't start coming clean with Canadians until after he was caught. And even then, it took a year-long investigation for any details to come to light. So if the Prime Minister didn't think that there was anything wrong with these trips, why did he go to such lengths to hide it?
Honourable Government House Leader.
issue, we have been clear from the very beginning. We have said that we will work with the Commissioner and answer any questions that the Commissioner has, and we have done exactly that. We respect officers of Parliament. We know they are here to do important work, and we will encourage them to do that important work on behalf of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is the first Canadian leader to violate our ethics legislation by accepting luxury vacations and sticking Canadian taxpayers with the bill. Canadian taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for the Prime Minister's illegal activities. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and refund taxpayers for his trip to Bell Island? The Honourable Government House Leader.
The Prime Minister has responded and has accepted all of the findings as a leader should. Mr. Speaker, the steps have been taken to ensure that all future family vacations are cleared ahead of time, and with the Office of the Conflict and Ethics Commissioner, it was this government actually that put measures in place when it comes to travel. We will continue to do important work that Canadians expect us to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
The Prime Minister went to Expedia to book a private island vacation like the ones he accepted. He would be paying tens of thousands of dollars per night. And in addition to that, the Prime Minister billed taxpayers $200,000 in travel and staff expenses for his illegal vacation. Now, we now know that it was wrong for the Prime Minister to accept these luxury vacations. So I'm asking the Prime Minister, if he's going to take responsibility, he can answer, will he pay taxpayers back for the costs he left them?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, when Prime Ministers travel, we know that there are certain things that need to take place. Every single time a Prime Minister travels, they're provided the resources that they need to ensure that the Prime Minister is able to do and carry out the functions that the Prime Minister has, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the report that the Commissioner has released, the Prime Minister has accepted those findings. We will continue to work on behalf of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We know that the Prime Minister asked the AgnaCon for access to his private island to use for his personal vacations. We know that the Prime Minister accepted a private helicopter ride during at least one of these vacations. These actions by the Prime Minister weren't just wrong, they were illegal. Now, part of saying sorry is making amends. If the Prime Minister is truly sorry and truly takes responsibility, will he do the right thing and pay taxpayers back for the money?
Honourable Government House Leader.
And as was the case for the and as the former Commissioner herself stated, security costs are incurred wherever the Prime Minister travels. Mr. Speaker, this government will continue to work with Commissioners, with Officers of Parliament to do the important work that we are here to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Taxpayers do support the Prime Minister when he travels, but they shouldn't be expected to support his costs when he's breaking the law. The Prime Minister would have us believe that it was okay because he thought the AgnaCon was a close family friend, but the Ethics Commissioner revealed that he hadn't actually spoken to this close friend in over 30 years. The Prime Minister broke the law by accepting these trips. Will he do the right thing and pay taxpayers back?
Honourable Government House Leader.
The report was released. The Prime Minister accepted those recommendations. The Commissioner also found that the Prime Minister did not participate in or make any decisions relating to the AgnaCon or his institutions, as has sometimes been implied by the opposite side. It's unfortunate. This government is here to work on behalf of Canadians to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. We will continue to work on behalf of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.